Hey everybody, we're back. We have our buddy Mike with his 2016 ZX-10R. Mike has graciously, was this bike here when it was brand new?
0 miles.
0 miles. So this is our long-term test bike, and we've done a whole lot of stuff. Mike's a rider. We've got 23,000 miles right now.
Yep.
And I don't know if you can see this here, but very rarely do you see sport bike seats worn out. If that shows you the type of riding that Mike does. Last time you were here, it was 16,000 miles. We had switched from the P08 to the P08 F1-85.
Yep.
Since then, I'm going to go through some of the changes. And guys, he's made changes that are so broad that the fact that he just put on a super cool Penta-Carbon exhaust with our satin tip to match his super cool VST Rapid Tech wheels that are also satin. Ordinarily and previously you had the Predator with the OEM head pipes,
Yep.
Predator catback slip-on. Originally I was going to do an A/B test so you can see what the Penta-Carbon does versus the Predator. But he's made other changes. So not only have wheels been added, the pipe's been added, but he also went in because the internet says so, or your friend said so. Why did you choose the intake line?
I was in there already doing the valve clearance check, so I figured why the hell not.
So you gotta love this. I hate fixing broke shit, right? It's broken, I fix it, it becomes unbroken. Mike has the same mindset as me. It was time for your 20,000 mile?
It was due at 24,000, but
Okay.
I'm going to Deals Gap soon, so figured I'd do it
Proactive.
before then.
Dude, you gotta love that. So at 24,000 miles, he needed to check his valve adjustment. Well, he can check his valve adjustment, and you would have found that everything was fine. Put it back together. A couple evenings or an evening at least of your time dead, gone, and bike's no faster.
Right.
But instead, Mike elected to purchase it's the OEM Kawasaki kit intake cam.
Intake cam, basically.
So if you're in there anyway, why not spend a couple extra bucks so that at the end of the time you're putting into it, your bike's faster, which we're going to check here soon. Was that very difficult?
No, it wasn't.
And you didn't even have to reshim your valve clearance, right? Since it's an OEM cam, and then it comes with cam sprockets.
Yeah, you replace the sprocket, bolt, cam, bolt bit.
But it comes pre-degreed. So he didn't even have to degree his cam. So basically what he did was 100% dropped in an intake cam. We're going to check that now. So that's why doing the pipe comparison wouldn't have worked out, because he's got a intake change that would jack up any pipe test. So basically what we're going to do now is figure out where he's at, figure out where the mapping is with the cam, and then also we have Predator mapping, or Penta-Carbon mapping that we'll put in, and we'll verify that. And basically, Mike just wants to see what his mods did, and also how his bike runs, and whether or not the air fuel's okay. Now, disclaimer, please read my atmospheric conditions link right here. It is hot out here. It is Africa hot outside. It's super humid. So we're going to lose, whatever, 5 horsepower. We already know it. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
And all that really matters is what kind of power we can get out of it when we're finished with what we're doing here today. So we're gonna go make some passes now. We'll see here in a bit. what's happening here. As soon as I
like that though.
Yeah, that's your old one.
Oh.
The blue one's now.
Oh.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
This is so much fun. It's so much fun to know stuff. All right, we're back. Mike, what do you think?
Looking at the old versus new, it's
Wait a minute, how much did that cam cost?
$200.
$200. Wow, really? That
Yeah,
is?
it was cheap.
Wow, that's super cheap.
OEM Kawi.
So basically what we went from, if you guys want to come over here and look, last time he was on the dyno, and once again, this is not a fair comparison because the red line was the bike without the cams or the Penta-Carbon. The blue line is with it. But look at the weather. We had a correction factor of 1.00. It was 65 degrees in the dyno room. The pressure in the room was up. The humidity was down, so the correction factor is a 1.00 last time versus 1.04 because the bike just doesn't have the air it needs to breathe. But what's going on here? So we put in our camshafts and we basically ended up with, for a half a horsepower increase, which we could probably call 4 or 5 more, apples to apples with the weather. But what is going on here? How can we be down almost 10 horsepower in the middle and up through here? I know, want me to tell you?
I know, I'm curious.
Remember when I asked you when you were going with your cam if you were doing anything to increase your compression? So basically what happens, guys, when you go with a longer duration camshaft, your valves are open longer.
Right.
Well, when those valves are open longer, you have a tendency to lose mid-range power unless you do something to increase the compression. Apples to apples, basically what installing a race cam or a longer duration cam does is it moves the power, right?
Okay.
That's all we've done is moved it up. So what we find is most straight up aftermarket cam installs, when you do this, you're getting exactly the results that I expected you to get. You're getting a lack of power up through the middle, but then where you did move the power up to, you're hitting your rev limiter before you get there. Now there's another thing. So now let's come look over here. Well, how come the bike dropped from 13.08 air-fuel ratio to 12.43 and magically it's all messed up through here? Because we don't have as much compression to burn the fuel that we're putting in with the stock cam. So we're going to be able to get some of this away just in a tune-up, right? We're going to get the air-fuel ratio closer to where we want it to be. And that could make some sizable gains because with the heat and humidity, that's going to affect that. Combine that with the cam, that's going to affect it. This is not an endorsement for a Penta-Carbon, even though everyone should have one. I can tell you right now that the reason you didn't lose more in here was because we picked it up with that. And one of the things that the Penta-Carbon does, you think about it, your OEM head pipes, your primary length and your secondary length are as good as Kawasaki can make it, taking into consideration they also have to put a cap and all the other crap that goes in there. Well, we don't have that issue. So what we can do on a pipe like the Penta-Carbon is make a head pipe that works identically to the OEM Cal. They know more than we do. Why not use what they're doing? But then we can change our secondary collector length to pick up more mid-range. So generally, we will see quite a bit of gain in here, even over the Predator, which is a great exhaust, because the Predator doesn't have the ability to tune that length because it's set on that length that the factory gave you before you removed all that stuff. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to leave everything alone, and we're going to see how much of this we can tune out to try to get Mike a little bit more of a bang for his camshaft buck, and then we'll talk about that once we do it. So we're just going to go in and do some 100% loaded dyno tuning until we get this blue, come on up here. And you can see there's a considerable difference in the air-fuel ratio here between Mike's previous map and pipe combination and Mike's current map, pipe, and now cam combination. So we'll see if we can fix this real quick and we'll come back with the results. So basically what I did, instead of going in and doing a custom map, I just pulled our Penta-Carbon / Alien Head street map out of our map support system and threw it in there because it's going to be closer than the Penta-Carbon map that was previously in. Sure. So this is no custom tune. Well, maybe it was previously, but never for this bike with this pipe.
Right.
And especially not with those cams. So if you come over here, so the question was last time, how much power were we going to pick up as a result? Now this was the pass with the last mapping, and you can see we had some dips down in here, you know, got pretty lean there, got really rich there, and through here it was very similar. So by just putting in our map support map, now look at that, we've got a nice straight map, and you can see right here, this out, where it used to be lean, we've got it closer to where it wants to be, and there was a couple horsepower there. Same thing down here, you can see a little difference in the mapping here, a little bit of a gap, and if you look up in here, got a little bit of a gap, 1, 2, it's not enough, but whenever you can get a gap, you've made a gain. So what does this mean? This, unfortunately, Mike, means that we're not going to be able to just map the losses back because this is mapped really close. Now we'll go in and map for conditions and we'll pick up some, but by and large, it isn't a mapping problem that was causing that gap, right? Right. So what we'll do, we'll go and play with the mapping a little bit more because I know your bike does like to be run a little bit on the lean side, and especially this heat. So that'll give us that. And I was also checking it. That the good news is that when I put the map in that was designed for this pipe, first, second, third, fourth, fifth were all really nice here in the green. So there's no reason for us to do a full map session. We're just going to go ahead and we'll do 100%, see if we can pick up a little bit more. Now, before the internet police get on me, Mike, did installing your camshafts change your compression ratio?
Yes.
Ha! But how, Mike? Compression ratio is a math formula with the difference in volume between the piston at bottom dead center and top dead center. It's math. Did you change that math?
I did not.
Not change that math. So when we say compression ratio, there's two different types. There's the static compression ratio, which is that mathematical formula between top and bottom dead center. Then you've got the dynamic compression ratio, and what that basically means, and that's much more difficult to read. You can see it on the dyno. Got some really fancy engineering stuff on like a crank dyno. It's easy to spot too. But what that basically means is because Mike added more duration to his intake cam, at a given RPM, he's actually decreased the dynamic compression ratio because the valve is open longer. Right? So the valve is open longer. I remember the first time I put a set of cams in, I had an 82 Katana with a 1260 motor, lots of compression, had the stock cams in it. Man, I thought that bike was so fast. I took it out to the racetrack. It went like 1170s. I could do that without a big motor and cams. Put it on, go out, ride it on the street. It felt fast as hell. Well, then I go and put a set of bigger cams, higher lift and longer duration, and I degreed them up with they said they should be. They were webcams. It was awesome. I'm doing this stuff at 19 years old. This is gonna be great. And I go out and I go for a ride, and my ass dyno frowned. You just couldn't believe it. I go out for a ride, and all the bottom end torque I had and all the snap I had wasn't there. So I'm like, I just put all this money in here to slow this bike down. My ass dyno was unhappy.
Yep.
Then I went to the racetrack, and first run, I'd never been in the Tims on that bike. The very first run was a 1088. And the mile an hour went crazy. It went from like 100, if I remember correctly, 136 to like 142. It was huge.
Yeah.
But my ass dyno wasn't happy. By putting in those longer duration cams and higher lift, I was able to fill those larger cylinders at higher RPMs, which gave me a tremendous horsepower increase. Well, your ass dyno doesn't feel horsepower as much as it feels torque.
Right.
So when I took it for a ride, it actually felt slower, but in reality, in the upper RPMs where I'm screaming, "Ah, this is great," it was flying. Much, much faster motorcycle. So because we didn't change the compression, because we didn't change the engine size, but we did change the cam, and this is really important. I was just explaining this tonight. If you're a car, Brody, do you need to change the battery?
Yeah.
Just change it. All right, we are back from our equipment failure. Need a battery in the camera. The camera guy's slacking today. What I was gonna say is this is probably, this whole conversation, if you are a Harley guy or a car guy, this conversation is probably very confusing to you. Why? Because if you've got a Harley or a car or whatever, damn near any other engine, when you put a cam in, you get a big increase pretty much everywhere. You can get an increase in torque, horsepower, but the difference is cars are not factory race bikes. We're not comparing apples to apples. Harleys, I love my Harleys, bless their heart. They're not factory race bikes. They're street bikes and street cars. So that part I was talking about with the torque and the low end drivability and stuff, that's paramount. So what they do is they'll put cams in that help the drivability, they'll help emissions, they'll raise the dynamic compression so you have more torque. But this is a race bike. Kawasaki, all these sport bikes are race bikes. So we're talking about the engineers who built this engine, built a cam for this engine that they know is going to run great once we do all this stuff.
Right.
So it's not an apples to apples conversation. It's a, is it possible to even do any better than what they have? Many times, and when I say many times, actually no. Leaving a sport bike completely stock and just installing a cam, with the exception of maybe the Gen 1 Busa was really cam limited on the exhaust side. So if you put an exhaust cam in, you picked up power pretty much everywhere. But from almost all of these modern sport bikes, ZX-14s, Hayabusas, if you put in a higher lift and or longer duration cam, 9 times out of 10, you get that. You actually get a power loss unless you've done something that requires the use of a rowdier cam, right? Increase the compression. Displacement's huge. You know, we'll have guys they'll make their bikes real big and they'll have the same cams in there, and they won't hardly make any additional horsepower. Sometimes they lose horsepower. Now they'll pick up a bunch of torque. Well, hell yeah, they got a much bigger cylinder and a much bigger piston, but they got the same amount of horsepower because they didn't do anything to put more air into those bigger pistons. The valves were open as long as the valves were open. Now granted, a larger motor could draw more air, so you may see a little bit of an increase, but it's really not uncommon to have your great big engine that you just did and go, oh shit, well that's no bad, no much better.
Right.
The real true engine builders understand that if you're going to increase the displacement, you also have to increase the ability to fill that larger displacement, and the more you can fill those cylinders at higher RPM, the more power you're going to make. Bigger engines make more torque. What does that mean? That means you change pistons, you change cams, you change intakes, you change throttle bodies, you port the head, you change the valve. You see where I'm going with this? So it can be done. And building fast motors is great. I think my Hayabusa made 287 horsepower on nuts. It was not designed to run very long, but it ran mid 7 second quarter miles with no nitrous or turbo. So building stuff like that is a lot of fun, but it's also a challenge. Some of the guys out there are really good. 287 is not a lot of horsepower normally aspirated these days, believe it or not. So before we get back into this, we were just talking about the fact that the air-fuel ratios now are straight. We really didn't pick up much on this gap. But Mike said, he goes, you know, I don't spend a lot of time up top. I'm usually up in this area, or down here in this area. So if we look, we've got about almost 6 horsepower gain here at 6,800 RPM, and 5 foot-pounds of torque. That's from the pipe, not from the cam. If the pipe wasn't there, I'm fairly sure that this gap would pretty much stay right where it was. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go in and actually tune for conditions. This is really good mapping here because both of these maps were made on this bike in the same conditions back when we did them. So we'll map for conditions, see if we can pull some of this out, and then we'll start talking about what else we can do to get full potential out of this camshaft. All right.
It's hot.
I'm hot. It's very hot in here. So what happened? We just went in and we cleaned up the mapping through the Power Commander, and we also did a little bit of drivability mapping because Mike spends you spend a lot of time in one particular area.
Yep.
So we went in and smoothed that up for you a little bit. We'll see how that works out on the road.
Yeah.
So what were we trying to do? We were trying to get the bike with all the new mods mapped correctly. We know it's hot outside. We know that hurt power.
Mm-hmm.
We know that you made some changes to it that required straightening of the air fuels. So enough talking. Let's get to the dyno chart. If you come up here, this was the last time the bike was on the dyno. It was, oh geez, November of 2018. It was real nice out. This is today after adding the camshafts, the blue line. And you can see there's a pretty big drop. Of course, we talked about the weather. If you look at the mapping, look how crazy this is. And you know, Mike added cams. You changed from the Predator cap back delete to the Penta-Carbon full system.
Yep.
So we can expect mapping issues when that happens. We did have a problem here horsepower wise, and so what we just went to do, because the air fuel previously was so straight, leave that red line, damn, I do good work, and the blue line was no good. We went in and we tuned it. So what I'm going to do, just take this out. So there's what we started with, and what I wanted to do, actually I probably need to put that back up because I had made the comment that I thought we could pick up some of the loss in here just because it's just so darn hot in here, and the humidity and the correction factor is 1.04. So this is what we just ended up with after our mapping. Now it's a little hard for you to see. Let me zoom in here. So I did that. I was hoping to pick this up in here, and you can see we did. We actually picked up quite a bit of it. But look what happened up top once we straightened it up. And I'm going to go ahead and put on the green line. This is where these camshafts were supposed to be working, and they just weren't working in these conditions with that mapping. So we went in, and I mean, if you look right here, heck, compared to where we started, let's get yesteryear out of the way. When we started today, 187 horsepower. Now we're at 194. So even with the cams, we've got a nice power curve. We picked up quite a bit of power here. I'm going to go ahead and take this one out and go ahead and put the other one in. And this will give you a better idea of exactly what all went on. So while we were talking about losing power, now remember, red is with the Predator catback and stock cams. The green line is with the new Penta-Carbon full system. And look where Mike wanted to pick up some power. Wow, nice power and torque gain down low. We caught up there a little. All right, and that's where I told you we're gonna move this power with that additional duration of the camshafts up to here. And look at the power gain that we've got now. And I mean, right before red line, I like showing those 186 to 193. We've got a bunch more power here. So if you like to drag race, if you like to land speed race, your engine is going to spend most of its time up here. So the modification that you did most definitely did help when tuned for the condition. And it actually looks like it's nosing over a little, so I don't see any reason to up the rev limiter. I think you've done really well. 195 in these conditions is very strong. It's right there with most modern sport bikes, and this 2016 got a little bit of age on it, but it all says 23,000 miles, everybody. So anyway, what's the moral of the story, Mike? Are you happy?
I'm happy.
Good.
Very happy.
It was a little sketchy there at first, and believe me, we could do some other things to increase this later, but I think you did a really nice job. I was really happy to see this, and you know, you never really know how much are we condition limited. You also, how old was the gas that was in the bike?
At least a couple weeks.
A couple weeks old, so it should have been fine. Yeah. But we actually ran out of gas making his mapping, so we had to go get additional fuel. So that is fresh fuel, and that could have actually skewed our readings a little bit initially. So this is with fresh fuel, straight as an arrow map, and I'd say you did a good thing. Wasn't just bolt in and go. If you just put it in, you don't know.
Right.
Good news is now, if anybody else has that combination, we can help you out with that. It has our ECU flash, our mapping in the Power Commander, Sprint Filter, Penta-Carbon exhaust. Really, it's everything that we sell. So if you decide you want to do that mod to your bike, thanks to Mike, we can help you out with it. So anyway, I think we learned quite a bit here.
Absolutely.
Right? All of us. I learn every time. I may have a bunch of crap rattling around in my head, but until you actually do it, you don't know whether or not you've gone in the right direction. Mike, I take back what I said. I told Mike, I said, you know, I'd have told you not to just drop that cam in. But once it was all tuned and everything was talking to itself, and by that I mean the conditions, the filter, the pipe, the cams, the fueling, all of it working together. You've also got the short velocity stacks in there.
Yes.
That's a really nice gain, and if we were in better weather, you can add at least 5 horsepower to that, 200 horsepower, 2016, legit. And this on pump gas, guys, 89 octane. You had to show it. We went to the marathon station because it's hot and we're in a hurry. So anyway, until next time, our buddy Mike. Thanks, Mike. I'm Brock from Brock's Performance. We'll see you then.